It appears to be a Canadian-built copy of an older Bobcat. It won't start. There's your negative battery cable. There's your negative battery terminal. Water pump bypass hose. Nope. Hey little buddy. You got in there, pup. You can get out. That's some impressive wear for something with basically no load on it. The auxiliary couplings here leak pretty badly. The left side boom cylinder, it leaks pretty badly. Needs to be rebuilt. But the big problem is the engine. It runs fine, but it just doesn't seem like it revs up high enough. Always camera shy. First things first, I'm trying to figure out why the engine won't rev up all the way. I pulled this cover off the side of the injection pump. This is the shutdown lever. I don't know if you guys will be able to see where it lives, right there in front of the dipstick. There are 4 springs. There's a start spring, a torque spring, and 2 governor springs. You can see the governor springs right there, one inside the other. They both appear to be intact. So I don't think that's the problem. I'm pretty sure the governor springs are okay, but I did stumble onto something interesting. So this is the throttle shaft, or some people call it the governor shaft. And yeah, I can turn that inside the lever, like quite a bit. I can turn it probably 30 degrees. That doesn't seem right. So I don't know if there's a key sheared or something. I'm gonna pull that apart and we'll see. Well, there's your problem. At least that's a problem. Pretty extreme wear on that keyway. The key itself is also worn down to about half its normal thickness. Luckily, the keyway in the shaft looks okay. I don't see any bite marks. I think this might be her first time. Oh, I don't know if this is gonna work or not. Now we're gonna need the pipe wrench. So it has this hole here for a pin spanner, but that's more for assembly in the factory. Usually doesn't cut it when you want to take them apart. Oh gosh. Like I said, it's easy, big baby. Nothing to it. Oh, well, there you go. That makes it easy. think we have the parts to fix these control linkages. Some of these were not easy to find. This should be the correct stack of washers and spacers. The only part we're going to reuse is these bushings that fit inside the joints. Everything was pretty sloppy. Even the washers were worn out. We had a weird bronze bushing stuffed in there for some reason. That one's not too good, so we're going to start over from scratch. The big thing is the rod ends. This end's not too bad. They have a plastic insert. They probably would have been fine, but they're cheap enough. I'm going to go ahead and replace them with a greasable version in case someone ever wants to grease them. The other end is not so good. That's pretty wonky. This is a custom part, and they've pressed in a rubber bushing, which is made by Lord. I was finally able to track down someone who would sell them to me. This is a pretty standard setup for like aircraft controls. So if you're in a pinch trying to find these parts, an aircraft parts supplier might be able to help you. That'll work. I'm sure we'll have to make some adjustments, but it's much better than it was. I know it probably seems trivial, but sloppy controls they're no fun. Also, turns out we have the original battery hold down bracket. It was in the compartment over here. In fact, I picked it up in the video. I just didn't know what it was. So I went ahead and installed it. Yeah, no more block of wood required. I struck out trying to buy this part. Apparently my local dealership is a Kubota equipment dealer, not a Kubota engine dealer. So they can't even look up this part unless it's in a piece of Kubota equipment. Said if I had the part number, they could probably order it, but I don't, so they can't. Apparently the nearest Kubota engine dealership is somewhere over in eastern Wisconsin, so that's not very handy. Doesn't matter. I think we can fix it pretty easily. So I ordered a shaft collar that has the same outside and inside diameter as this piece here. All we got to do is cut through this weld, remove this bushing, broach a new keyway in this bushing, and weld it back together. I also got a new key. Okay, this should broach a 4mm keyway into this 12mm bore. Big thing you gotta watch when you're broaching is the broach wants to lean one way or the other, usually forward, which makes it broach too deep if you're not careful. Like I said, wants to lean forward. I mean backward. That's why I started with broaching. Figured I'd screw it up. That'll do. Little gray paint, nobody would ever know the difference. In case you weren't following what happened with this bushing, it broached too deep. I was in the middle of giving a lecture about how the broach likes to tip, and the broach tipped. The problem is the cutting pressure is all out here at the tips of the teeth, and it makes the broach want to lean back and cut too deep on the bottom. See how you had that gap? So it should be like that, and it wants to rock back like that. So I should have turned it 90 degrees so it was better supported. Also, there's always play in the ram of the arbor press, so you gotta take small bites, pay attention, that kind of stuff. No big deal. That's why I have a lathe. This collar was too thick anyway, so I was gonna have to turn it down no matter what. For some reason I had a 12mm reamer, so not a big deal. Oh, I probably should have put that through the linkage first. Yep, I should have. Okay. Oh, that's pretty sloppy in there too. Probably should have just replaced the whole throttle plate. I guess we'll see if this works first. Oh, this is pretty hokey. Be a lot better if it tightened down against the shoulder instead of having this weird double nut setup. Yeah, because if you tighten it too tight, it stops turning. I don't know, we'll give it a shot. Shouldn't be a problem to run it with the cylinder off, as long as we don't pull any levers. I'm gonna go ahead and put the bar down. Okay. Here we go. That's not good. We're stuck at full fuel, and I can't shut it off. I don't even know how to. Come on, baby, die. Can I pinch the fuel line some way? Oh, thank God. That was not good. What the heck did I do wrong? Was not expecting that. Why doesn't the shutdown work? Okay, well, yeah, that's not good. Well, that was fun. She was stuck at full throttle and then some for probably about 30 seconds. The shutdown was unresponsive, the throttle was unresponsive. I tried capping off the air intake, that slowed it down, but it didn't kill it. I finally was able to pinch the fuel line and shut her down completely. Yeah, I guess I got the little shutdown lever in the wrong spot when I put it back together. So I fixed that. We're gonna try it again. Hopefully we don't have a repeat, because I don't think she's got too many of those left in her. Here's what happened. This is the injection pump. This is the front of the engine, which is actually at the back of the machine. This is the throttle shaft that had the worn keyway that we repaired. This is the end of the rack. It connects to the plungers and it controls how much fuel they deliver. When the engine is turned off, this cold start spring pulls the rack all the way to full fuel. It basically puts it at full throttle, makes it a little easier to start. Once it starts, the governor pushes this lever out, pulls the rack back to the normal position, and you go back to your normal RPM. When you shut the engine off, this lever here, which is inside the cover that I removed to inspect the governor springs, pushes the rack all the way towards the no fuel position, shuts the engine down. What happened is when I installed that cover back on the pump, I got the lever over here instead of over here. This lever is actually spring loaded this direction, so it was spring loading the rack into the full fuel position. So basically sticking it at full throttle and then some, because it was actually pushing against this torque spring. That's why it was smoking like a freight train. And even worse, because the lever was on the wrong side, I couldn't shut it down. There was no way to pull the rack off of the full throttle position. So yeah, that's not a good situation. I don't know how I did that. I mean, I thought I was being careful to get that in the right spot, but apparently not. So yeah, if you're working on a Kubota, be careful of that. That'll do. 2700 is good enough for me. Good thing these Kubota engines are tough. I don't think we heard it. Probably wouldn't have wanted to run it at full rack for much longer. I was waiting for pieces to come flying out. I'm taking a break. That was a heart racing moment. They've got this shutdown solenoid all janked up. This is the wrong solenoid. They cobbled together a couple of brackets with a bunch of washers, jammed an inch-size bolt through it. It works, but doesn't really line up correctly. Anyway, they had the right one at the local dealership, so I went ahead and bought it. Kind of pricey, but should work better than this, whatever you want to call it. See how bad they screwed the threads up. It's always amazing to me that people just, they don't seem to even contemplate that there's a metric system. Yeah, sure enough, they just jammed an inch-size bolt through there. I'm gonna clean that up. Well, that's a tiny bit better. The old Kubota is a bit of a leaker. Okay, we converted that from 5/16 back to M8. That'll work. Looks good. I think we're done back here. I know it's just my lack of experience, but it seems like every time I rebuild a cylinder, I run into a seal design that I've never seen before, and no exception here. Everything is super simple, except for this piston seal. These orange cups are actually wear bands, and this thing in the middle is the seal. It's a lamination of fabric and rubber, I guess. Anyway, it's made by Halite, but good luck getting them to sell you one. I called the company, they referred me to a distributor. The distributor said I would have to order 7 pieces minimum. They would have to ship from the UK, but it doesn't matter because he didn't think they had them in stock anyway. However, he was able to cross it over to something else, and this is it right here. So this thing replaces that thing. And I bought this from Hercules Sealing Products out of Florida. Anyway, I think I've got everything we need. Let's start putting it back together. We'll start with the gland. It has a U-cup seal. This is also made by Halite, but these are pretty generic, so I just bought one that had the same dimensions. This is a rod side seal, so the inside leg is just a little bit shorter than the outside leg. It's supposed to cheat the pressure towards, I don't know, one side or the other. Anyway. Actually, you know what? I bought a tool for this. There it is. Forgot I had it. So I think I can, no, it must be the other way. Yeah, fold the seal back onto itself. Maybe. All right, there's a learning curve. Come on, the tool's supposed to make it easier. All right, here we go. So the cup faces towards the pressure. Ha! Pretty slick. Now we need an O-ring, which I had to buy a pack of 10. Looks the same. And a wiper. So this doesn't actually seal, it just scrapes the bigger chunks off the rod before you suck them into the seal. Okay, that's done. Now the piston, this should be super simple. Drop our new seal on, like so. And we need an O-ring for the inside. I had to buy 50 of those. It's okay, I'm sure we'll use them for something else. There it is. And the spacer. This is just here to limit the stroke of the cylinder. Got a little hickey on the threads there. I want to clean that up. This is a thread file. A lot of people asked about that in a previous video. It's just a file that's made to the same pitch as the thread. So theoretically it shouldn't cut any metal that isn't deformed, if that makes sense. Not quite sure why this piston has this little groove machined into it. Seems kind of odd. Sure, it's there for a reason. Just don't know what that reason is. Click. Lots different than the old seal, that's for sure. There we go. Good enough. We'll tighten it the rest of the way when we get it on the machine. There is one other slight issue. Yes, the pin bores are completely slapped out. No, I'm not going to do anything about it. These things are pretty handy. I'll try to put a link in the description. They're silicone plugs. I believe they're actually made for powder coating. Like if you have a hole or a threaded hole that you don't want to get powder coated, you jam these in there. But they work really well for sealing up hoses. Nothing. Wah, 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 wah. These are, I think, Pioneer connectors. That's non-standard, plus they leak. This flat face connector is supposed to be the standard. That way I can borrow everybody's attachments. This gizmo is called a form-a-funnel, by the way. Very handy tool. There we go. I think we're at a good stopping point. The engine revs up, the cylinder is rebuilt, the linkages are rebuilt, the couplers were replaced. I did also plug the holes in the bottom of the battery box. It probably won't keep them out, but at least it makes me feel a little better. There is a brake, like a parking brake setup down here. That big spring there and the crossbar. There's a cable that runs up to the safety bar. See, that cable is broken. When you raise the safety bar, it's supposed to engage the parking brake. It probably works, but I don't see any reason to revive that, at least not at this time. We may have to replace these control cables for the hydraulics though. Sometimes they're a little sticky. We're making progress. It's so much better than it was before, but we still have a lot of work to do. The bucket is really in sad shape. It's twisted, the bottom is bowed, it's worn through the bottom and both sides. It needs a total rebuild or maybe a total replacement. But the bigger problem is the quick attach. It is not a universal quick attach. I thought it was, but the dimensions are wrong. It's too wide. And that's kind of a problem because all of the attachments made in the last 25 years are the Bobcat universal quick attach. And if you don't have that, you can't use them. And that's kind of the whole point of having a quick attach. So I'm not sure what we're going to do about that. Also, I want to change the rest of the fluids. I did change the engine oil, but I want to do the hydraulic oil and the gearboxes and all the filters. And we've got to do something about the rear visibility. You can't see anything behind you. So we need a mirror or a rear view camera or something like that. But we'll tackle that in part 3. Thanks for watching.